Hare Krishna. Suddha Bhakata Charanarenu Bhajana Anukula Suddha Bhakata Charanarenu Bhajana Anukula Bhakata Seva Parama Siddhi Premalati Koromula Bhakata Seva Parama Siddhi Premalati Koromula Madhavati Bhakti Janani Jatane Palana Kori Krishna Basati Basati Boli Parama Adare Bori Gora Maharaja Sabastane Koralo Brahmanarange Se Sabastana Heribo Ami Panayi Bhakata Sange Mridanga Bhadya Sunite Mana Abasara Sadajache Gora Bihita Kirtana Suni Anande Hridaya Nache Jugala Murti Dekhiya Mora Parama Ananda Hoya Prasada Seva Korite Hoya Sakala Papancha Jaya Jedina Grit Vachana Keki Krite Koloka Bhaya Charana Sedu Dekhiya Ganga Sukana Simana Paya Tulasi Dekhi Juraya Prana Madhava Toshani Jani Gora Priya Sakha Sevana Jivana Sarthaka Mani Bhakti Bino Krishna Bhajane Anukula Paya Jaha प्रतिदिवसे परमसुखे स्वीकार करो यथा शुद्ध भक्त चरण रेणु भजन अनुकूला भक्त सेवा परम सिद्धि प्रेमलाति करो मूला Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Dust from the lotus feet of pure devotees is conducive to devotional service, while service to the Vaishnavas is itself the supreme perfection and the root of the tender creeper of divine love. I observe with great care the holy days like Ekadasi and Janmashtami, for they are the mother of devotion. As my dwelling place, I choose with the greatest of reverence and love the transcendental abode of Sri Krishna. All those places where my Lord Gaurasundar traveled for pastimes, I will visit in the company of loving devotees. My mind always begs for the opportunity to hear the music of the mridanga. Upon hearing the kind of kirtan ordained by Lord Gaurachandra, my heart dances in ecstasy. By beholding the deity forms of a divine couple, Sri Radha Krishna, I feel the greatest joy. By honoring the Lord's Prasad, I conquer over all worldly illusions. Goloka Vrindavan appears in my home whenever I see the worship and service of Lord Hari going on there. Upon seeing the Ganges, which is a river of nectar, emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, my happiness knows no bounds. The sight of the holy Tulasi tree soothes my soul, for I know she gives pleasure to Lord Krishna. By honoring Sak, a dear favorite of Lord Chaitanya, I consider life worthwhile. Whatever Bhaktivinoda obtains that is conducive for the service to Sri Krishna, he accepts every day with the greatest of joy. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Bharivrad Bhattacharya Ashtatara Sata Sri Srimati His Divine Grace et Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Sri Sri Gaurnitai Ki Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai Jayam Vishupad Paramahamsa Bharivrad Bhattacharya Ashtatara Sata Sri Srimati His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan Ki Jai Sri Sri Gaurnitai Ki Jai Sri Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi All glories to the Samadhivatis, all glories to the Samadhivatis, all glories to the Samadhivatis, all glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasubhadade, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachadine, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Lilatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Today we are reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamritam, which is the biography of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, written by Sasadvut Das Goswami. This is the volume 3, entitled Only He Could Lead Them, Prabhupada is now in New York City. That is 1967. In the month of June, he became somewhat indisposed and he was resting for some time. But now, at the end of June, he returned to 26 2nd Avenue in New York and to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor was surprised at Swamiji's recovery and had no objection to his flying to San Francisco. So in search of sunny skies and eager to guide his followers in performing the first Ratri Yatra, Prabhupada had airline tickets booked for himself and Kirtanananda to San Francisco, New Jagannath Puri. That was the name given to San Francisco by Srila Prabhupada, New Jagannath Puri, because of the first Rath Yatra festival held in the Western countries. At the San Francisco airport, Prabhupada smiled but said little as the devotees greeted him with flowers and kirtan. It was different this time. He walked straight ahead with the head of a cane. Jayananda was waiting with a station wagon to drive Prabhupada to the private house they had rented north of the city at Stinson Beach. But first, Prabhupada said he wanted to visit the San Francisco Hare Krishna temple. Jayananda drove to 518 Frederick Street. Prabhupada got out of the car and entered a small storefront, which was filled with waiting devotees and guests. He bowed before the smiling Jagannath deities and without speaking a word, left the room, returned to the car, and departed for Stinson Beach. The ride up through the seaside cliffs was so winding and climbing that Prabhupada became nauseated. And even lying down in the back seat and having Jayananda drive slower did not help much. Kirtanananda realized that it would be too difficult for Prabhupada to visit the San Francisco temple from Stinson Beach. But maybe that would be just as well. He could spend all his time recuperating. It was a modern single-story, 6-room house with a Japanese roof. A sign out from read Paradisio. A sign out front read Paradisio. Srila Prabhupada noticed in the front yard, amidst fashionable lawn furniture, a statue of Lord Buddha, a garden ornament. When Prabhupada entered the house, he found Mukunda and his wife Janaki waiting for him. They bowed down and Janaki wept in happiness. Prabhupada smiled but kept walking slowly and silently through the house. The large living room overlooking the Pacific Ocean was decorated with some of Jadurani's paintings of Lord Vishnu, Radha and Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya, as well as with Indian prints of Jagannath Puri. Prabhupada's bedroom, also facing the ocean, had sliding windows. On the wall was a portrait of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and a painting of Radha and Krishna. Prabhupada smiled and said the paintings were very nice. The devotees agreed that only Kirtanananda and Upendra would stay and serve Swamiji. They wanted Swamiji's stay to be peaceful so that his health could improve. That night, Srila Prabhupada felt pain in his heart and couldn't sleep, and he didn't rise early for translating. At 5 a.m., Kirtanananda came in and opened the window slightly so that Prabhupada could receive the soft ocean breeze. Prabhupada sat up in his bed, chanting his japa and gazing at the feet of Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani. A mountain range to the east blocked the morning sun. Ever since Prabhupada's talk, Kirtanananda had been regularly massaging Prabhupada morning and evening. Kirtanananda would rub Prabhupada's head vigorously and then sit behind him and massage his back. Next, he would massage Prabhupada's chest, his arms and his legs, the complete massage lasting sometimes more than an hour. Since leaving the hospital, Prabhupada had also been taking daily morning walks, even while on the Lower East Side. And this morning he went down for a walk on the beach, accompanied by Kirtanananda and Upendra. As Prabhupada walked on the beach, he pointed his cane towards some bubbles in the sand. "Just see," he said, "there are living entities everywhere. There is no place without living entities. And yet they say there is no life on the moon." The beach was rocky and there were cliffs where the waves crashed powerfully like thunder. "You hear this sound?" Srila Prabhupada asked. "This is an echo of the gopis' heartbeats when they are feeling separation from Krishna." He walked for an hour until his two young servants were both tired. "Do I tire you walking?" he laughed. "This walking and massaging are saving my life from day to day." Then he continued walking. By 11 o'clock, the sun finally appeared over the mountains and through the clouds. Srila Prabhupada, his head wrapped with a towel, sat in a folding chair on the beach, taking in the sunshine. He kept saying he needed more sun. After lunch, the sky was again overcast. In the evening, Prabhupada called Kirtanananda and Upendra into the large living room and led them in a subdued kirtan, singing Hare Krishna and Govinda Jai Jai. He stood and led them in a large circle around the room. He would stop before the picture of Krishna, bow slightly with folded palms, turn around, and then continue in the circle. On July 8, after Prabhupada had been at Paradiso for 2 days, Shamsundar and Mukunda drove up from San Francisco. The next day was to be Rath Yatra, and Shamsundar and Mukunda, the first devotees to visit Prabhupada since his arrival at Stinson Beach, told Prabhupada all about the festival preparations. Of course, the whole festival had been Prabhupada's idea, but the devotees in San Francisco were trying to do exactly as he had asked. Srila Prabhupada had first gotten the idea for the festival while looking out the window of his room above Frederick Street, noticing flatbed trucks passing below. He thought of putting Jagannath deities on the back of such a truck and conducting an American-style Rath Yatra festival. He had even sketched a truck with a 4-pillared canopy on the back and decorated with flags, bells, and flower garlands. And he had called in Shyam Sundar, "Make this cart for Rath Yatra." Now, ready and sitting outside the temple on Frederick Street was the cart, a yellow Hertz rental truck, compliments of the diggers and complete with 5-foot columns and a pyramidal cloth canopy. Sitting with Prabhupada on the beach, Mukunda told how all the devotees were working with great enthusiasm and how the hippies in Haight-Ashbury were talking about the Jagannath parade that would take place the next day. The devotees had tried to route the parade through Golden Gate Park, but the police department would only give permission for them to go south down Frederick Street to the sea. Mukunda said the devotees planned to have Jagannath under the canopy, facing the right side of the truck, Subhadra facing the rear, and Balaram facing the left side. He wanted to know if that was all right. Actually, Prabhupada said the devotees should ride in separate carts, pulled with ropes by the crowd, to the streets. Maybe that could happen in future years. Do it nicely, he cautioned them, and don't hurry it up. The devotees would drive the truck slowly to the streets down to the beach, and there should be constant kirtan. Mukunda and Shamsundar glorified Jayananda. He drove all around San Francisco getting donations of fruits and flowers, found people to help decorate the cart, installed a sound system on the truck, and distributed posters in the stores. He was tireless, and his enthusiasm was inspiring everyone else to take part. The women had been cooking chapatis all day, so there should be thousands to give away to the crowd. The devotees had prepared hundreds of Hare Krishna Rath Yatra festival balloons to release on the streets as the parade began. When the devotees asked what else they should do, Prabhupada said that this was all: a procession, prasadam distribution, kirtan. The people should get a chance to see Lord Jagannath and chant Hare Krishna. There should be chanting and dancing in front of the cart throughout the procession. But do everything nicely, Prabhupada said. Do it as well as you can, and Lord Jagannath will be satisfied. The next day, in the quiet afternoon, Prabhupada was sitting in the living room, chanting on his beads. Upendra was with him, and Kirtanananda was in the kitchen cooking a feast. Suddenly, Prabhupada heard the familiar ringing of cymbals, and he became very happy, his eyes widening. Looking outside, he saw the Rath Yatra truck with Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram, and dozens of devotees and hippies eager to see him. He went out to greet them and had them bring the deities inside and set them on top of the upright piano. Devotees and guests followed, filling the large living room. Smiling, Prabhupada embraced some of the men, while others made obeisances at his feet. Some devotees helped Kirtanananda in the kitchen get ready to distribute the large feast he had prepared. Others reported on the success of the Rath Yatra festival. It was great. It was wonderful. It was a beautiful day, they said. And Prabhupada listened, moved by his disciples' description of the celebration. Many hippies had joined the large procession. Mukunda, Haridas, Hayagriva, and some of the women had been on the cart. And the instruments, including Yamuna's playing on the harmonium, had all been amplified. Everyone in the streets had liked it. The police motor escorts had tried to hurry the devotees, but so many people had crowded in front that the parade had been obliged to go slowly, just as Swamiji had asked. Subal had danced wildly the whole time, and Jayananda had been jumping up and down, playing kartals. From the truck, some of the women had handed out cut oranges, apples, and bananas, and others had thrown flowers. The crowds had loved it. Shamsundar told how they had been going up a steep hill. Shamsundar had been driving with his dog Raf beside him on the front seat when the truck had stalled. He had tried to start the engine but could not. Then the brakes wouldn't hold. The truck began rolling backward downhill. Finally, he had managed to stop. But when he had tried to go forward, the engine had stalled, and the truck had rolled backwards again. He would get it started. The truck would go forward, then stall, then roll backwards. Everyone had been in anxiety. At last, the truck had started forward, and the procession had continued all the way to the beach. Srila Prabhupada smiled. It was a pastime of Lord Jagannath, he said. The same thing had happened when Lord Chaitanya had attended Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri. Then also, the cart had gotten stuck, and no one had been able to move it. The king of Orissa had brought forward the most powerful wrestlers to push the cart and pull on the ropes, but it wouldn't go. Even the elephants could not move it. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had then put his head against the cart and pushed, and only then did the cart begin to move. Now Rath Yatra had come to the west, and with it this pastime of Lord Jagannath. Prabhupada noticed some devotees were missing. Where are Jamuna and Janaki? He asked. The devotees told him that some hippies had handed out candy spiked with LSD, and that a few of the devotees had unwittingly accepted it and were just now recovering. Subal related how, after the festival, they had traveled out on the freeway in their flower-bedecked, canopy-covered truck carrying 30 devotees and the deities of Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram. They had driven up to the mountains in what must have been one of the most unusual vehicles ever seen. After all the visitors departed, the deities remained in the house with Prabhupada and his servants. Prabhupada felt satisfied that his disciples had successfully held a Rath Yatra festival. Although untrained, they were sincere. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur would have been pleased to see the first American Rath Yatra. The whole world was in anxiety. Prabhupada explained to the devotees gathered in his room that evening. Only in the spiritual world was there freedom from anxiety. Becoming free from all anxiety and returning to the spiritual world was the purpose of Krishna consciousness. And festivals like Rath Yatra made people Krishna conscious. Prabhupada had many ideas for festivals. If he had the money and the manpower, he said, he could have a festival every day. There was no limit to Krishna consciousness. This Rath Yatra festival was another sign of the good reception for Krishna consciousness in the West. He wrote Brahmananda in New York. Prabhupada, from his letter, the house is situated in an exceptionally nice spot, and the house itself is aristocratic. So there is nothing to complain about the house and place. The only difficulty is that I cannot go to the temple on account of the zigzag course of the road and crossing the mountains. Anyway, the devotees are coming here, and the Rath Yatra festival was just performed with great pomp. More than 500 people followed the procession to the beach, and there were about 24 cars. They distributed thousands of chapatis, and at last Sri Jagannath, Subhadra, and Baladev kindly came here in our house and will stay here for 1 week and then return. Srila Prabhupada still talked of going to India. He had virtually made up his mind to go. The question now was when and whether by the western route via Japan or the eastern route via New York. The gray skies and unseasonably cool temperatures of Stinson Beach were a disappointment. His health was still poor. He even spoke of dying. It didn't matter whether he died in America or in Vrindavan, he said. If a Vaishnava dies in Vrindavan, the land where Krishna appeared, he is assured of joining Krishna in the spiritual world. Yet, when Lord Chaitanya had traveled outside Vrindavan, his devotee Advaita had assured him, "Wherever you are is Vrindavan." To be always absorbed in thinking of Krishna was also Vrindavan. So if he were to pass away while preaching Krishna consciousness anywhere in the world, certainly he would still attain to the eternal Vrindavan in the spiritual sky. Nevertheless, Prabhupada wanted to go to Vrindavan. It was the best place to die or to recuperate. Besides, he had a plan for bringing his disciples to Vrindavan for training. He expressed this plan in a letter to Sumati Morarji, the owner of the Scindia Steamship Company. Quote from Prabhupada's letter: "I am thinking of going back to India as soon as I get sufficient strength. I am now considerably old. I will be 72 years next September. But the work which I have begun in the Western world is not yet finished, and I require to train some of the American boys to preach this cult all over the Western world. So if I return to India, I will have to take with me some of the boys for training. They are all nice boys to take up the training. So your cooperation in this connection is greatly needed. You have already allowed my men from India free passage. Similarly, if you allow free passage for some of my American disciples, they can come to India and taking training from me at Vrindavan. The idea is that in this old age, I do not know when death will overcome me, and I wish to die in the last days of my life at Vrindavan." End of quote. Prabhupada told Kirtanananda, Hayagriva, and others that he would take them with him and show them the sacred places of Krishna's pastimes. With the New York Temple's building fund, he will start his American house in Vrindavan. Quote from Prabhupada's letter: "I may come to Montreal, perform the opening ceremony of installation of Radha Krishna Vigraha. Then I may go back to India for 6 months, as there is a program for construction of an American house for training preachers at Vrindavan. Vrindavan is the only solitary transcendental abode within this universe where Krishna consciousness automatically reveals. Therefore, I have a great hope to train some of my disciples for preaching work, even in my absence. I am now old man and attacked with serious disease. I may be overcome by death at any moment. Therefore, I wish to leave some trained preachers so that they can do the work of Krishna consciousness in the Western world. That is my ambition. I hope you all pray to Krishna so that I may be able to execute my duty properly." End of quote. When Govinda Dasi wrote Prabhupada that she was anxious to serve him again, as she had in New Jersey, he replied that he would be going to India to try to construct an American house where you will be invited to come and live for all the days. Both your husband and yourself, you will find it a very peaceful atmosphere in Vrindavan to worship Krishna. Waiting for sufficient strength to travel, Prabhupada continued his daily routine at Stinson Beach. 1 or 2 at a time, devotees would visit him from San Francisco. His morning walks on the beach, he is sitting to take in the sunshine whenever it peeked through the clouds, and his evenings of kirtan or reading in the living room remained undisturbed and peaceful. Upendra says, he would sit in his chair on the beach side of the house. He liked to see us go in the water and play. At first, I felt a bit strange going in the water and knowing that Swamiji was watching me. But I went in and began washing my body. When I looked back at Swamiji, he was motioning from his chair, throwing his arms up like he was splashing in the water. I kept doing it until finally I understood that he wanted me to splash and play in the water. As I began to splash and jump around in the water, he nodded his head and smiled broadly. Mukunda says, I went on a walk on the beach with Swamiji, and when he sat down, I sat down opposite him. Then he asked me, what is your definition of Krishna? I said, Krishna is God. He is the Supreme Being. Our duty is to worship and serve him. Swamiji seemed fairly satisfied, and then he said, you must chant 64 rounds per day on your beads. I was shocked at this and could not answer. I did not know if there was any need to answer. I just kept looking at Swamiji, and he looked at me. After some time, he said, or at least you can chant 32 rounds a day. Still silence. I considered it to be very difficult to chant even 16 rounds. I was wondering how I could possibly chant 32 rounds. After some time, Swamiji said, at the very least, you must chant 16 rounds every day. I said, yes, Swamiji. I knew that I could at least try to handle that much. What is the time now? So we can stop this reading here today. Anyone has any question or comments? We can appreciate Srila Prabhupada, although his health was not good, but he continued preaching Krishna consciousness without any deviation whatsoever. Generally, when people are sick, they go to a hospital, they stay in the bed, or they stay at home in the bed, sleeping 24 hours a day. But Srila Prabhupada was not like that. Even though he was not well, he had some severe heart disease and was very weak. But he constantly planned his preaching, just like he held the first Rath Yatra in San Francisco by giving instructions to his disciples. So he supervised the preaching activities, and in his conversation with the disciples, always enlightening them about Krishna consciousness. So his mind and his determination never changed. And he made a plan to go to India for some time again. That was in 1967. And go to Vrindavan along with some of his disciples and train them about the Vrindavan atmosphere, how to become devotee of Krishna in Vrindavan, how to respect the inhabitants of Vrindavan who are all pure devotees of the Lord. So in his mind he has plans for the future and never forgot at any time the instruction received from his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to establish Krishna consciousness in the English-speaking countries. So that was the greatness of Srila Prabhupada. One can meditate on this and worship Srila Prabhupada as a pure devotee of Lord Krishna in all circumstances. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.